Welcome everybody to Surprisingly Relatable, where we bring you fun and realistic pro tips, knowledge, and hacks you can use for real to build win-win relationships and make work-life balance a reality. My name is Holly Burby, and each week I'll share with you a thought, story, or self-awareness shortcut that will help you to get unstuck, reconnect to your significance, and get focused and clear so you can relate to the people you care about the most. I truly believe that if we want to live a life of purpose and passion, it's time we put away the fake nicey nice and get to the root of how we can actually connect with each other in our homes and communities. That is how we can all succeed and move toward what we each want most. So if you're ready to be surprisingly relatable and evoke positive change that supports, uplifts, and inspires you and others in the world, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Today's episode was completely inspired by the Barn 45 weekly Bible study, morning Bible study that I listen to. They are a nonprofit organization that hosts Bible studies and other things that are Bible-based here in Southeast Michigan, where I am from. And as I was listening to these four brilliant women have a conversation this morning about the book of Genesis, I recognized, holy cow, there are so many stories about what humility is and what humility isn't. So today's episode is all about the right and wrong ways to be humble. But I wanted to give that shout out to Tara and Terry and Joy and Marlo, because the four of them, this chat inspired today's episode. So thank you, ladies, for that. Cannot help but have Kendrick Lamar in my head as I do this episode. Yes, I just talked about Bible study and Kendrick Lamar in the same 60 seconds. Bear with me. I am full of surprises and I will not sing, I promise. What is humility to begin with? When I look up the word humble, I thought this definition was so interesting. Humble is having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. I'm so fascinated because when I saw the word modest, I wasn't really surprised. When I think about a person who is humble, that is kind of what I think about. A person who is not trying to outshine other people. Modest or humble means that the person is not bragging. They're not one to call attention to themselves all the time or ask for accolades or recognition. So modest made sense to me. But then to also have the phrase low estimate of one's own importance, wait, what? In the same definition was very surprising to me because I don't consider myself, at least, having a low estimate of my own importance. And I do consider myself humble to some extent. So anyway, dictionary definition, that alone kind of blew my mind. So here are three things I've noticed about how people think they are displaying humility and being humble, and actually what it's putting out instead as a message about who they are and what's important to them. The first thing that people think that they're doing while they are attempting to be humble or stay humble is either in their personal life or in their professional life, they're holding back in some way. They simply don't want to outshine another person. They don't want to outshine their significant other. They don't want to look smarter than the people in their life that they care about. So maybe they're not sharing their full-on opinion. Maybe they're in a professional setting and they see something of importance that maybe their boss or leader or manager or owner, etc., didn't notice, and they may not point it out right away because they want to keep themselves in check. They want to remain modest. They want to stay humble, and they just don't want to outshine the other person or take the spotlight away from that person. So the example in the Bible study this morning that my friend Terry shared is she shared an example of listening to a singer perform. And this was specifically a worship leader, singer in church. And the impression is when a person is singing in church, they have two choices. They can either sing the song, the worship song, with all of the notes, all of the runs, all of the ups and downs and vibratos, and make it so grandiose with every little detail. Think Christina Aguilera or Celine Dion, right? Very much full out singing. Or they have the option of singing that song in what they perceive to be a more modest way. They're not going to hold the note out for a very long time as if they're Aretha Franklin. They're not going to do an encore. They're not going to draw more attention to them than needs to be drawn to them, because they're not trying to outshine the other people, perhaps, that are in the worship band at the church, but more so they're not trying to outshine the Lord or be like inappropriate in that setting. And what I thought was so amazing about the share that my friend Terry said this morning is she recognized that by listening to a singer who does go full out, it actually left her with an experience of inspiration. She felt inspired to go and fully self-express. That singer's full out attempt at the song showed my friend what was possible for her as a singer. It was an outward sign and reflection to her of what she was capable of. If that same singer had showed up that day and my friend sat in the audience and that singer had not gone full out, that singer had told themselves, I'm going to stay modest, I'm going to color between the lines, I'm going to not use any of the runs in my singing, and I'm not going to show off. If they had done what they thought was modest or humble, my friend would not have left that performance thinking that she could do more than she currently does herself as a singer. So it's important to consider in those moments where you are telling yourself to stay modest and be humble and not outshine others. I want you to know that what is actually happening is you are a walking invitation for people to stay the status quo of where they are. People are not going to become exceptional in your space. They will collaborate with you, they'll work aside you. But if you are not full shining yourself, there's nobody else around that's going to give a permission slip to everyone else to step into what they are fully capable of as well. So that is example number one of the wrong way we think we're being humble and the right way that we could fully shine and invite others to be with us in that instead. Another way that we think that we're showing humility or being humble is when someone pays us a compliment. We might say something like, "Oh no, it's okay. You know what? I like your shoes. Oh, thank you, but no." Or they give us a compliment and we say, "Yeah, but I know I've lost some weight, but I'm not where I want to be yet." And there is this refusal in a way to say thank you for the compliment that we're being given. We think we're being humble because, again, we want to give others this idea that we're not better than them. We work just as hard as them. If I say thank you because someone said that I'm beautiful, or if I say thank you because somebody says, "Holy cow, you're so inspiring and you work so hard," if I say thank you, that means that I think those things are true, and then they're going to think that I think I'm better than them. Sure, okay, it's an incorrect approach to being humble, okay? I see the point in withholding or just saying, "No, that's okay," or deflecting too, which could sound like they compliment you on your haircut and then you compliment them back on something else just as quickly. That is another form of rejecting their compliment through deflecting. So we think we're being humble in that moment by not letting in those compliments, those accolades, that recognition. But as I said, what's actually happening is you are rejecting other people's kindness. And some people on this planet live for making other people's day. They live for being givers, for giving accolades, recognition, compliments, gifts. Some people, that is how they love, through big actions of giving and smaller actions of giving. And so when those givers pay us a compliment and we reject it in some way and don't say thank you, or do say thank you and still reject it, or when those generous people give us a gift and then we give a gift back because we now feel that the gift giving has to be reciprocal. Well, if they got me something, then I'd have to get them something. When we deflect the compliment or we give a gift in response to one, we are rejecting their kindness. So that is another example of the wrong way that we think we're being humble. The wrong way to be humble is by deflecting comments and giving gifts when we get a gift. But the right way to be humble in those situations is to practice receiving. Practice saying thank you. And then don't say anything else. Practice receiving the gift. And when you feel compelled to go and get them something in exchange because they gave you something to begin with, instead of buying them a gift in return or doing something in return, use that moment instead to go back to them and say thank you for the gift again. Give them another moment of gratitude for what they gave to you. That will be far more impactful to a person who is a generous giver than giving them something in return. One of the things is a deflection of their giving, and another thing is when you express that gratitude, it's a fulfillment to them. They feel fulfillment and love from you because they know that their generosity was recognized. And the last example of an incorrect way or a wrong way that we think we're being humble is when we don't acknowledge ourselves for any reason. We do not acknowledge ourselves, especially acknowledging ourselves in front of other people. And we might hold off on acknowledging ourselves in front of other people because we don't want people to think that we are egotistical. We don't want people to think that we are a braggart, or that, again, that we think that we are better than everybody else. So we do not acknowledge ourselves outright. People could ask you, for example, hey, what are you proud of in completing this project? And people will say, well, I'm proud of my team and I'm proud of the result that we created. But most people will not in that moment with an audience say, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud that I did what it took. I'm proud I didn't quit. Most people will not take the time to acknowledge themselves in that way. And it's because they're telling themselves, well, I want to stay modest. I want to stay humble. I don't need to acknowledge myself in all of this. But there's a trick with this, because what is happening in this case is by not telling yourself that you did a good job, by not acknowledging yourself and saying, you know what, Holly, I'm proud of you for pulling through this week and finishing that project, even though you didn't want to do it. And I'm proud of you for standing up to this person that wanted to put together a contract with you and it didn't fit your values and your principles and you said no. If we don't take those moments to acknowledge ourselves and respect ourselves, we're setting ourselves up to have a conversation internally of, I don't do enough. I don't do enough. At the end of the day, yes, hopefully there are people in your life outside of you, and the people outside of you in your life probably tell you, good job. I'm proud of you. That's fantastic. And those things can feel really good to hear from the people outside of ourselves. But that is still us receiving validation from something external, from people outside of us. And that's going to cause us in time when we feel, I don't feel like I do enough. I don't feel like I am enough. If we have to keep seeking that validation from people outside of us, man, what if we run out of an audience for a while? So it's important to create a habit, to create a practice where you take time to acknowledge yourself for what are you proud of you for. And you don't have to announce it in front of everyone if you don't want to, but just notice the moments in your life where you have an opportunity to do what's deemed a humble brag, right? To say, you know what? I am proud of myself for doing this, that, and the other. And remind yourself that when we do acknowledge ourselves, we are now fueling an internal conversation, an internal dialogue of, you know what? I am enough. I do show up. I do enough. And then we don't rely on people to feed that to us. And that's super important. So I hope this was helpful today. Again, I wanted to highlight for you some of the ways that we think we're practicing humility, being modest, being humble, and really the message that it's telling ourselves and others instead. I'd love to know what you think about this episode. As you're listening to it, go ahead and take a screenshot, please, on your phone and post your screenshot to social media. I would love for you to tag me. You can tag me in your stories with that screenshot on Instagram at holly.burby.coaching. Comment along and tell me what was your greatest takeaway from today's episode. Which of those scenarios do you see yourself in? Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to hear your feedback and how this hit home for you. And until next time, I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. And if you loved this episode and know of someone else who's passionate about creating authentic relationships with people, please pass them on to me. It would mean the world to me if you help me get this cause and this message out to as many listeners as I can. So please, if you liked what you heard, I'd super appreciate it if you'd take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review and share this with your friends. And until next time, show love always, in all ways. And may you discover that we're all surprisingly relatable.